and of course Michael Lagwanda, governance expert, and Bernard Wakoli, political analyst. Gentlemen, let's talk about referendum. And Deputy President William Ruto says he's not ready. He's being forced to support. I'll start with you, Wakoli.
Thank you very much. I think what's being discussed on the issue of referendum is being, ballooned so much to the extent that we are forgetting very pertinent issues. At the moment, as we speak, the electoral body is starting voter registration, but nobody is talking about restructuring the electoral, system. So who is going to even manage and oversee the referendum? Again, what is being talked about is something that, people have not come out clearly on what need to be changed within the constitution. They're just throwing words here and there. Then they expect the deputy president just to say, okay, we are going to support. There must be a systematic and a very clear thing that is going to be changed, or the question first. Before
but why do you think
start talking about that? Why
do you think the Deputy President William Ruto is not having a firm stand? Because last week, if I'm not wrong, we had Mr. Wedder here last week on Monday, and he said the media read a wrong script from what the Deputy President said. So was he supporting, was he not supporting?
The Deputy President is representing the government, is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. So for him to come out and say, okay, I want to support the referendum, it means now the government is not sure about, the implementation of the constitution. So what the Deputy President has done is to leave the discussion go on, and he said clearly that you discuss, agree on the issues, then come on the table. The government is ready to support whatever the government will support. But he gave conditions that we are not going to support. The government is not going to support a referendum that increases the burden on Kenyans. And that's something that needs to be put into consideration. Because we are talking about creating position of prime minister, I don't know, president, I don't know, deputies, all those things. Instead of focusing on issues that are overburdening the majority of the Kenyans. So that's where the discussion needs to start from, not looking at these other positions. The other day I was listening to Honorable Barati, and he's saying, okay, we have to change the constitution so that we have the president is Uhuru, prime minister is Uhuru Kenyatta, and president is Honorable Raila Odinga. And I looked at that guy and wondered, how did he end up in parliament? Because we have a democratic and parliamentary system where we have political parties, a multi-party system. And even if we create the position of the prime minister, the position will come from a party that has majority. So unless ODM folds itself and joins Jubilee, then forms a majority, or Jubilee folds and joins ODM to have Uhuru, the prime minister, and the president,
Mr. Gwanda,
and the president Raila Odinga. But if that one does not happen, then we are just talking. It's just hot air.
Okay, is this hot air? Do you think it's the Deputy President does not have a firm stand because we still don't have the correct question for this referendum?
I want to tell you three things that I think about this whole idea. First, I think the Deputy President is advancing this discussion of referendum. And I think he wants it. That is why he keeps on talking about it. Because he mentions the 4 agendas, but there's very little going on in the 4 agendas. So he talks about referendum, and that's what people take home. So he's advancing this thing, and he wants it to happen. It's just that he's using the reverse psychology. That is why he's mentioning it. Because every time he mentions it, some other politicians have to talk about it. Secondly, the Deputy President is conflicting himself. And not only himself, but he's also conflicting the position of the government where he serves as the Deputy President. And the head of this country today is President Uhuru. And for that reason, if he says that we have decided that we will allow the referendum to go on, that one he said last week. That might not be the exact word, but that's really what he said. But he went further and said, well, look, if there are people that want to discuss this, we'll let them handle it, but we will allow. When he says we will, he did not say that I will allow. He said, well, that means that that is the position of the government. In other words, the government accepts that there will be a referendum. Number 3, and I want us to remember this very clearly, the Deputy President is not the President of the Republic of Kenya. If the President says there will be a referendum, it doesn't matter whether he says I will not be there or I will be there. In other words, what he's trying to say is, look, if the president decides that there will be a referendum, I am not in it. In other words, I am divorcing the president. I am divorcing the president in this matter, and not only in this matter. I could possibly go to another party and even leave Jubilee. That's what I think. That's what he's saying. Because if the president says that there will be a referendum, then why will the deputy president say that I will not be there?
So are you saying that the deputy president should not oppose what the president says?
He can oppose, but he has no authority to do that because he will be acting on the president of the country that is following, and he agreed that he will support. Remember, this is an argument that I will support the president until his tenure is over. And number two is that when the president, who is also the head of Jubilee Party, says, this is the direction that I want, if you do not follow it, then you just have to disentangle yourself from it.
Mr. Weda, you seem not to...
Let me finish this.
Okay.
And so I really think that what the deputy president is telling us in a nutshell, soon me and the president will not be seeing one another eye to eye.
Okay. Mr. Weda, you seem not to agree with what Mr. Gwanda is saying, but even as you respond to what he said, should he have the referendum before 2022 or after?
I rarely blame the media myself. Last time I was here, I said, what exactly, where did the media get this thing that Honorable Ruto supports the referendum? In literature, we have what is called sarcasm. Your editors should be able to know that. When the deputy president spoke, it was something like this. The work has been divided. Those who are talking and doing all these things, now they can go and talk. Those who are working and are going for development like us, we are on this side. Let them talk, and then if there's something, they bring it to us, we look at it. If it is okay, then if it is not okay, that's the way he talked. He was simply saying, that business, we are not in it. But you read that he supports. He does not support the referendum. Why? Because they gave to Kenyans 4 topical agenda that they want to run in the next 5 years. Referendum or amending the constitution or Punda Mechoka was not part of them. You get it? So that even if President, whether or not it should come, I'm answering that question, even if President Uhuru today was to come and say, I also support the referendum, some of us will ask him and say, was that agenda number 5 or agenda number 1A? Because we have the 4 main ones, and the country has many needs. You put them in order of priority. The question is our priority number 1 constitution? No. Is our priority number 2 constitution? No. Number 3 constitution. So when you stop doing the work, then you go into something else. We'll be saying that was not in the constitution.
So when the deputy president, William Ruto said, I am being forced to support referendum. The question is, who are these who are supporting him, who are forcing him to support the referendum? And number 2, why is the president so quiet on this issue of referendum?
You see, I think he's being forced by the
media.
Mr. Collins, you're saying the media?
He's being forced. Let me answer according to what I think. He's being forced by the parties to the handshake.
So parties to the handshake definitely. Definitely, parties to the handshake is opposition leader Raila Odinga.
Definitely, and the president. You remember that Honorable Ruto's success ascendancy to the presidency is hinged on performance of the current government. So that by 2021, he is able to say, we have done this good work, we are very happy, Kenyans are very happy, let the work continue. So if you sabotage that, then you go into something else. Come 2021, you'll be told, where are the houses? Where's the infrastructure? Where's the food? Where's all these things? You can't do the job, get out. That is why he does not want the debate about the referendum. And even Kenyans of goodwill should know that they will be shortchanged if they were to get into the business of referendum, instead of asking President Uhuru, where is the double-digit economy?
But as much as you're talking, about Kenyans questioning the president after 5 years, when his term comes to an end, where are the things you promised us? Mr. Okole, I'd like to hear your mind on this. Kenyans, there's some Kenyans who are actually supporting this referendum because they're saying Punda amechoka.
Just to weigh in on what Weda is talking about, you know, the constitution review process has a clear, a cutout process that need to be undertaken. At least we are seeing Kuro Court is trying to collect signatures. You can either change the constitution through popular, process, taking the question to the people, collecting signatures and the IBC, or to the parliament. So those who are talking about constitution review need to take action, either present these motions in parliament, let the parliament debate about it, or start collecting signatures. And I feel time is running out on them. As in, for me, I don't support, so I am not in that group of constitution referendum. Personally, that's my own view. Because if we need to do it, then let us look at, the IBC is talking about 12 billion. We are just from election, as in last year. Where's this 12 billion that is going to run this other election? And it will put the country in an electoral mode to 2022. Where will we be able to achieve what is expected of the leadership of this country?
So, Mr. Gwanda, there's a question I'd asked Mr. Wed, and I really don't think he answered my question. Why is the president so quiet about this referendum issue?
He's not quiet. He's in
Like, he's never come out publicly, the way Deputy President William Ruto has come out publicly to put his stand, like, I'm not supporting you either, I'm supporting.
I think this discussion will not be advanced to this extent without the president's support. So the president is supporting the referendum, and so is the former prime minister very, very well. But let me tell you, I want to just interject a little bit on the issue of money. It is not about money. The money that IBC has just stolen is over 4 billion. And so when you're talking about 12 billion that Mr. Bernard here is talking about, that's nonsense. I remember when we were going to a rerun, on the second rerun after the presidential announcement, UNDP came up and said, well, we can get you money to do this. And Kenyan government said, we don't need your money, thank you. We have a lot of money. And a lot of partners that can help us do this if you want to get it right. And secondly, thirdly, we also need to look as a country and say, where are we headed as a country? Are we having a constitution that is helping every individual in this country? Or we are having a constitution that basically helping just the few elites in this country, political elites? And I think that's where we are. We are in a state, basically as a country, now, what we are saying is when we continue with the winner taking it all, there will be a problem. There is no inclusivity in this government. I can tell you that you can go to Treasury and you can count how many other tribes are in Treasury, and you'll wonder what is happening, whether it is led by 2 tribes only or one tribe. And those are the questions that we are asking. Whether it is in the police force, you will wonder how many, what is the tribal composition there? Now, when you have a government that is basically so tribalistic, then the only way to look at it is to see about bringing inclusivity in it. And that cannot happen if you do not have rules and if those rules cannot be followed. And I think that is why people are saying perhaps the country needed to look at this Punda Amechoka thing. But in regards to reducing the numbers of parliamentarians, in my own view, that is not what we are thinking that we need to do. You can reduce and still have 50 members of parliament there, and they will steal the entire money. Or you can instill Chapter 6 and ensure that if you steal, you cannot be allowed to run for any position in this government.
Okay, gentlemen, let's look at now the crisis at the IBC in terms of governance. So Friday, the disciplinary committee of the electoral body decides, you know, Chiloba, you have to go. What situation are we in?
Drama.
Okay, I know there's been a lot of drama at the IEBC, but in terms of the composition of the IEBC, 3 commissioners are out. Then now you bring the CUs out. But the chairman of the electoral body says this commission can still conduct its mandate.
You see, the commission itself can conduct, call it the organization, they can conduct elections. You understand? Even the askaris, even the Tiga, they know how these things work. They can do it. You understand? But if you are going to do it according to law, then there is a commission. What constitutes the commission? A chairman and this number of commissioners. Do you understand? And then that is the board level. Then the management level, we have a CEO. When you dismantle all that, you can still call it a commission because it serves you. But in the eyes of the law, it is not a commission. Therefore, when you talk about what goes on in that commission, you can call it a national circus that we have occasionally to do what we want. So what Chiloba is saying sometimes, he says as a beneficiary, somebody wants a salary, therefore he doesn't want it to be called something else. But in law, as a lawyer, I know he knows that when the three are gone, the commission is not the commission, but it is not upon him. It is upon the president to ensure that at all times we have a commission. Why don't we have it? Normally, when you have a prepared commission, one which is ready, one which has been there in office, then it becomes difficult to manipulate. So what do? You keep them on edge throughout. On edge, you bring them into the office very late, and then you give them very little resources, and then you disorganize them, and you tap on them. Then now they don't know the head or the tail, the side, the right, or the left.
Okay.
That gives room. If you want to manipulate elections, then you can easily do it. So for now, when we are talking about referendum, we are talking about all this and this, we are not even ready to conduct a by-election in Migori if we were to look at the law.
Okay, so Mr. Agwanda, let's look at the leadership tussle between Chebukati and Ezra Chiloba. It's been there for quite a long time, to an extent that Chiloba went to the court to question his dismissal from the office, suspension rather.
You know what this IBC forgot is that after every election, you'll have to pave way for new people and go, either by force or in this case by a handshake. At the moment they saw Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga shaking hands with Uhuru Kenyatta like this on TV, they needed to have resigned and gone home.
Are you saying it was a red light? Like a warning light, like you need to be packing and going?
If I think that was a warning light, and if they did not see it, they need to see it now. None of those people are going to survive there, because Raila still holds the notion that election was stolen. And indeed it was stolen. I agree that election was stolen in this country.
That is a call. Can you substantiate that elections were stolen?
No, that is why the presidential
can you
election was
substantiate
annulled.
your statement?
Now, let me make it very clear. That is why if there were no issues in our electoral system, the presidential election would not have been annulled. That is, it's in public domain. And for that reason, this is what I say. If they saw Raila shake hands with Uhuru like this, the other time he forced, the Hassan group out by going on the street and making sure that they're at home. This time round, it is going to be by handshake. In other words, uliiba kura yangu, mukatangaza something else, you refuse to open the servers, and because of that, my friend, I am not forgiving you, you're going home. So they've started with Chiloba. Chebukati will go and the other commissioners are going. All they're doing now is to make sure that there's still some operationalization within IBC. But you know, for Chiloba, Mr. Gwande, because first was to appear before the disciplinary committee, we all agree on that. And then there are questions in terms of integrity, misuse of funds, questions that Chebukati had even written to Chiloba, questioning how funds were used. So that led to his dismissal. Remember that Chebukati was in the office, and so are all these other commissioners. You think where 4 billion is being stolen, you as a chairman, you'll not know. You will know. Do you know what 4 billion is? This is a joke. They're just trying to pass the buck to this gentleman here to go home. But they are all part of this syndicate. Chicken Gate happened, and people were arrested and put to jail in UK. Okay? Kenyans, we never took anybody to jail. It was okay. You know, you are our people. This is how these people steal. So Chebukati is part of the whole thing, and so are the commissioners. They knew. They authorized it. When the money was requested, you'd think you will not have the ability to know that this paper costs 60 or 70 shillings, and if it's 100 shillings that you can ask and say, but why 100 shillings? We are talking about airtime that was bought worth hundreds of millions in this country that has not even been used. You think you do not have, as a lawyer,
so according to you, Mr. Gwanda, all these commissioners need to go, including Chebukati himself.
They are part of it.
Okay, so Mr. Akoli, this whole drama is happening at a time when IBC today is beginning a continuous voter registration in Ukambani.
Sure. And before I come to that, I think what is affecting this country is lack of value system and integrity, not laws. We can make as many laws, as good laws as possible. In fact, our 2010 constitution is considered to be one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. But still, we are still finding, challenges with it. So the problem is not constitution. UK operates without a written constitution. They have common laws, as in practice. People know if you do this is illegal. If you do this, you need to face these charges. But in this country, we rely so much on this constitution, which has not even been, imagine, since its promulgation in 2010, we have not had this constitution translated in vernacular. Whereas we have a Bible that is read in almost all languages. But a constitution, you go to the village, nobody can, even some people don't even know the content. People even don't know what chapter 1 says, you know, such kind of things. So we must start from the basics. Translate this constitution to local dialects. Let people in the village understand. Read this constitution like a Bible before we start even talking about changing it. Now, back to your question about IBC. It's very sad that we are still entertaining these theatrics, as Mr. Wede is talking, as a country. I think a lot of noise we are hearing about referendum should be directed to the IBC. And as we speak legally, this IBC, the commissioners will not be in the office. Their term ends before before or immediately after the 2022 election. So what Wade is talking about, having these people come in the office within 2 months to election, then, you know, they confuse you around, then, you know, the election is bungled the way Michael is talking, although I don't support his assertion that elections were stolen. There was just poor management on the part of the NASA and the ODM. There was disorganization, lack of resources, and so many things. So we don't need to talk about that. But again, removing these commissioners through the handshake will be a problem. Because what will Raila go and tell Mr. President that we need to remove these commissioners? Is it because they stole my election?
So from
and
your
the president will say, no, the election was free and fair.
So from your side as a political analyst,
yes.
Are we likely to see Chiloba run to the courts again?
He might go to court, but you know, if a divorce has been made, Betty, as in you have a husband and a wife, and the husband says, I don't want you. Even if you go, like the issue of the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nairobi, if it's not, you know, they can't force Chiloba into the office.
So if it's not working, it's not working.
It's not working. Chiloba needs just to go, and Chebukata and his team should start preparing and give way for a new breath, you know, a fresh breath in the IBC.
Okay.
So that we have a 2022 election. I'm not talking about the referendum talk. I'm talking about 2022 election.
2022
that
election.
is free, fair, and credible. An election that can be trusted by every Kenyan. Yeah.
Okay. And gentlemen, we are about to bring this conversation to an end. I think we've tackled everything that has to do with the Ministry of Sports and also matters IBC and matters referendum. I'd just like us to cross over a bit. If you can take your Nation newspaper, probably the Standard newspaper also, it talks about President Uhuru Kenyatta saying that AMISOM is in Somalia to stay until that nation becomes stable. Yet, this year, the president was at the EU saying, we need funds. We need to fund KDF that's part of AMISOM because my government is spending too much money. Mr. Weda, the smile on your face.
If you look at it, the cost of keeping the soldiers there is very expensive. And other than the actual cost, you need diplomatic acceptance within the AU, within the UN, and all round. So the cost element is very huge. But what it saves for the country, remember part of the fall of our tourism was because these terrorists would come from there, they would then come and interfere with us. Remember the war began when they blockaded Kenya. How did they do it? It's called what? Piracy. So ships and goods would not come. It was more costly than saying, let's go there, and then we stop them from there. After they went in there, you saw the results aside that Kenya is a bit more safe. Other than that, Somalia is like a den, very very rich country, very rich country. In fact, if we were talking in the dark under the table, we would be saying, how do we get resources there the way they are getting from Congo and other countries? Don't think that these countries, even America, Britain, they come here to dance around and do discourse with us. They come to pilfer resources when you cannot organize yourself internally. Somali is very, very, they are, first of all, like fish. If we are able, there's enough fish, too much. You understand? If you take minerals, so if we could advance from covering the territory and then also getting some of these minerals to pay for the cost of maintaining law and order for them, it would be good.
Okay.
So I think the president is right. You understand? We just need to advance our acquisition.
Okay, so
because they invited us through this organization, they have to pay for it.
So, Mr. Gwandawai, do you think the president has changed his mind?
I really don't know why the president has changed his mind. And when you do a poll in this country about our existence in Somalia, especially our forces, I do not think that the country will say that let's keep on having those guys there. First of all, this country is in red in terms of our economy. Our economy does not look very good. I saw our United Nations upgrading us to 0.02 just last week. You know, a GDP growth of about 5.5, and now they've said maybe 5.7. From April this year. And now we also know that our bonds are going to mature next year, and this country will start paying for the loans that they borrowed. And we know for a fact that we are not able to collect enough resources to even repay our loans. In other words, what the government is going to do is they will have to go out there and borrow money again to start paying for this loan. Now, when you have such a critical moment where basically United World Bank is telling you that you guys, these are the conditions under which we can give you money. And you have a situation where China is telling you that, look, yes, you are asking for 380 billion, but you're also asking for 190 billion for that reason as a grant. And we are saying, no, we can't give you. Why will China say we can't give you the grant, neither can we give you the loan that you want? It's because they've looked at your economy and they're seeing a problem in future. They're seeing a situation where they may not be able to get their money. And the international community is also getting skeptical on whether Kenya needs all this money. Now, when you have such a critical moment where you're looking at your expenditure and you're also looking at what you have as the resources, and then you're still sending billions out of the country. And by the way, even though you're sending those billions, just last week we had some guys who came into our country and blew up teachers in our country, within our borders. And so the question that everybody's asking, do we really need to have the army, the AMISOM in Somalia, or do we need just to have them protect our borders?
So Mr. Kwali, do you think...
my thought is, let's protect our borders and have our military back home.
Do you agree with what Mr. Agwanda is saying? We need to have AMISOM out, KDF out of Somalia?
Kenya has played a big role in the stabilization of Somalia. And I just feel that what we have done should be enough, because if it means even capacity building, as in training the military in Somalia, I think they are now capacitated enough. And the other day I just read in the press that Somalia is now also sending peacekeepers in South Sudan. You know, so if our presence in their countries like insignificant, they feel they are also able to go and peacekeep in other countries. Then I think it's high time that we should focus on protecting our borders other than being there. But as Weda said, Somalia is a very rich country. And when you look at all these, most of these contraband goods that come to Kenya, they come through Kisumayo and pass through there and come, like sugar, all those things. So if it's a matter of business, if maybe the president knows what's going there, what's happening there, and maybe he supports those kind of things, then we can have them stay there for the purposes of business. But for peacekeeping, I feel we have overstayed our
We need to get out.
And being a good neighbor, as we are, we need to build the capacity of those security personnel in Somalia, and also establish the communities living at the border, help them to be able to keep peace within themselves. Because we have had so many incidences of terrorist attacks in the northern frontier. But you hardly hear any politician senior politician from that region condemning or talking about it.
Okay.
Which means entirely, according to me, they have sanctioned those kind of actions. And the other day, Honorable Dwale told us that he's going to name those
which he
financiers.
hasn't until today.
Until now, we have not seen any name.
I think hence why Mr. Wede is saying Somalia is a rich country that we need to tap into.
So it's very important that we focus our energy on those leaders who are there and investigate them. If they are the ones abetting those kinds of activities, let them be put in jail.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. And I told you we have three gentlemen who are really intelligent in analyzing what is making the headlines. I was right, talking to Mr. Ambrose Wede, an advocate, and Michael Agwanda, governance expert, and of course Bernard Wakoli, political analyst, and just trying to make us understand what's made the headlines. So keep it here. KTN News, good morning, Kenya. Next week, Monday, same thing with the same gentleman. Thank you so much for joining us and have a blessed week and day ahead of you. Let's take a short full of glory. Because of the moment of glory around the stairs, let's take a short commercial break here on Morning Express. But we shall be right back. And when we come back, we shall be handling matters women and land. So much controversy around it and so much debate when it comes to women and land. All that after the short commercial break.